around the world. Welcome to the Insurance Guys podcast, powered by Gale. My name is Scott Howell, your fearless host and leader, insurance agency owner and insurance evangelist for I Protect Insurance and Financial Services, based out of Huntsville, Alabama. And before we get started in today's episode, please help me welcome. He is a 6'3" sophomore from Mobile, Alabama. Parade first team All-American, Rivals 5-star recruit. He is a fantastic insurance agent and a great American. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome the incomparable Mr. Bradley Flowers. How are you, Bradley?
What did you think about that South Alabama thunderstorm that rolled through here last night?
I told our listening audience a couple times, I don't care where you live in the United States of America, I understand that you think you have seen and been through a thunderstorm.
Oh, it's nothing like a North Alabama thunderstorm.
But no, these Gulf Coast thunderstorms,
yeah.
It is like cloud to ground lightning everywhere, just and it's like somebody is just throwing Lowe's or Home Depot buckets of water on you. I've never seen anything like it.
You know what's crazy about that one is it just grazed us. We didn't get the bad stuff.
And what most people don't understand about the Gulf Coast, I lived in Gulf Shores for, I guess it was about 2.5 years as an adult. I was in my 30s. I don't think people understand when you're at the beach, guys, if you live in Nebraska and you're listening to me right now, or Oklahoma or Wisconsin or up in the Northeast, and you fly or drive down here and go to the beach, you go to Destin, Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Pensacola, Panama City Beach. If you're on that damn beach and it starts lightning, do you know how many people a year die on the beach from getting struck by lightning?
Probably a good amount.
It was on the news when I lived down here. Every other week, somebody was getting struck by lightning at the beach. It was terrible.
We lost power last night, and my 3-year-old watches TV right before bed. Now, I know that's not like the best thing in the world. You guys can judge me, but he gets to watch a little bit of TV before we put him to sleep, and power went out, and my generator kicked on. We just got a generator about 6 months ago, and he was like, Dad. I was like, just wait just a minute, buddy. And we have fiber internet, so if the power's on, the internet works. And a few minutes later, it came back on, and he continued watching his show. And I was like, this little dude has no idea how good he's got it.
Right.
Because when I was 3 years old, if the power went out, the power was out.
There was
no.
So, Bradley, I got a story for you this morning.
Okay. You said it was the best one.
This is just priceless. So a couple of weeks ago, Bradley, I'm on one group chat, and it's with Bradley Flowers. Aaron Robertson's on that group chat, myself, and David Crothers. 4 people on that group chat. Well, I wake up one morning, and I had a notification or something that Bradley had sent a message on that group chat, and I looked at it, and he said it was a screenshot of the U.S. Open qualifier scoreboard. And it said, and he said, hey, your boy Tyler Watts just missed qualifying for the U.S. Open. Now, let me explain who Tyler Watts is. Tyler Watts grew up in Pelham, Alabama. His dad was a 18-time district manager of the year for Alpha, and he retired as the number 2 guy at Alpha Insurance. Well, Tyler was a world-class athlete. He could have probably played any sport, 6'4", started at quarterback for 2 years at the University of Alabama. Out of high school, he was the number 1 dual-threat quarterback in the nation. Could have signed with any school in the country. You name it, they would have had him. He's that guy. Well, Bradley sends this screenshot, and I'm looking at it, and I thought, I glanced down at it, I'm looking at it, and it says Tyler Watts, Huntsville, Alabama. And I thought, that can't be the same Tyler Watts. Tyler Watts grew up in Pelham, which is a bedroom community of Birmingham, and has always lived in Birmingham. His family's from Birmingham. He wouldn't put Huntsville, Alabama on his whatever this is. It wouldn't show up as Huntsville. It would show up as Birmingham. So I said, Bradley, I don't think that's the same Tyler Watts. And Tyler and I are not friends. I'm very careful about who. If I say so and so's my friend, buddy, we're close. I can pick up the phone and call them anytime I want. And I could call Tyler if I wanted to, but I would consider Tyler, even though he was an old nationwider with me, more of an acquaintance, right? Like, we don't talk. Hell, I bet it's been 4 or 5 years since I talked to Tyler Watts, but we do know each other. And if we saw each other, we would speak and we would, hey, how are you doing? How's the family? That kind of thing. So I get to looking at this leaderboard that Bradley sends me. And about that time, David Carruthers chimes in and he goes, hey, I don't think that's the same guy. I just looked this kid up on Google, and this kid is like a teenager. And Bradley, when he said that, the light bulb went on over my head.
And it ended up not being him.
Well, here comes the part that's going to blow you away. When David Carruthers said that, I thought to myself, oh my God, over the past couple of years, when Wyatt, my son, just graduated from high school, would come over to my house, every now and then, he brought it up once or twice, he'd say, hey, Dad, I've got this buddy of mine. He's a friend of mine, and you're not going to believe this, but I think he may be the next Tiger Woods. And I'm not a golfer. I'm not into golf, and I would just kind of half-ass listen to what he was saying. I'd be like, oh, yeah, man, that's cool, man. That's awesome. And plus, it's a huge step out to say the next Tiger Woods,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So when David sent that screen, or David replied and said, hey, this kid looks like a high school kid, and it said he was from Huntsville, I called my son and I said, hey, buddy, you know that kid that you keep bringing up to me? Like, you brought him up a couple times. You said he's from Huntsville. He's, a friend of yours, and you thought he was going to be the next Tiger Woods. Is his name Tyler Watts? And he goes, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. He went to Grissom High School. He was a senior last year. Wyatt was a junior. Apparently they're buddies. And ladies and gentlemen, this kid missed by 7 shots qualifying for the U.S. Open this year. As a 19-year-old.
He shot he played really good. That was the crazy thing to me, is he shot like 4 or 5 under.
Yeah.
But missed by 7 shots. So my point in sending that is he picked the wrong qualifying spot.
Right.
Because in a lot of spots you shoot, a decent amount under,
you're going to get in.
You're going to be pretty close. Let me see. It may have been even more than that. But yeah, that's what that.
You want me to get Wyatt to get him on the Insurance Guys podcast?
That's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite days of the year for golf is the U.S. Open sectional qualifying. They call it the longest day in golf because you play 36 holes. And you're 36 holes walking, and typically they do all of the qualifiers. They have them all over the country, but they're on the same day.
Wow.
And the U.S. Open,
how many holes do they play in one day?
36 holes. You play 36 in one
Buddy,
day.
I bet you sleep good that night after you just...
Well, the thing is, a lot of the college golfers, so college golf, your tournaments are 36 holes a day, and you walk and you have to carry your bag usually.
Right.
So those guys are kind of conditioned to it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because the U.S. Open is really hard to qualify for, and you will have a high school senior playing against a top 100 player in the world because not all of the PGA Tour guys make it to the U.S. Open. In fact, Max Homa was a big story this year. He's a top player, almost won the Masters 2 years ago. He didn't qualify automatically, so he had to go to the sectional qualifying. So you'll have these crazy stories where you have somebody worth $50 million playing against a kid, and the kid will beat them. It's any given day you can beat somebody, and it's just a really fun day to watch. And then I track it all day, and there'll be guys that I played with growing up giving it a shit. It'll be guys like me that's like, hey, I'm 40 years old and I own an insurance agency, but I've been playing really good golf. Okay, I'm going to try to qualify for the U.S. Open because the thing about the U.S. Open is it's one of the 2 only true open majors that
anybody
figuratively you could say, hey, I want to try to qualify, and you could. and the next thing you know, you're playing against Scotty Scheffler in the U.S. Open and that sort of thing. And one of the cooler stories I'm watching this year, and this will air after, is John Peterson, who's from, I think, Baton Rouge, lives in Houston or Dallas now, was a college golfer that struck gold, made it on the PGA Tour, made a lot of money, I don't think he won, but he retired from golf pretty early on. He now is a garage door installer in Dallas and has gotten his amateur status back, but made it to, I think he's up to, as of yesterday, he didn't qualify, but he was an alternate. So you have your people that qualify, and then you'll have a few alternates at each site. And then if people will drop out of the tournament, you get bumped up. And so he's at Oakmont right now, and he's the third alternate, which is pretty good chance if you're a third alternate, you're going to get in, because what the pros who automatically qualify will do, if they're injured or they're not playing well, they will still go to the tournament, play a couple practice rounds, and then say, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm not going to play. And so he's literally a garage door installer now that has a chance. There was another guy that was a dentist.
I saw that from Sarasota, Florida.
A dentist, to me,
UPS driver. Did you see the UPS driver?
Yeah.
He's there's a UPS driver that qualified.
Yeah. He's like a young 20-something guy, but they had a
Wow.
picture of him in his UPS truck, and they said he was like, I don't know, a handful of strokes behind Scotty Scheffler or something. It was
it's a cool. To
cool
me, it's a
stories.
really cool thing because it's truly open.
So that's so that's where the movie Tin Cup, where he qualified for the U.S. Open and got to play in it, right? That's where that comes from. That's the tournament he got to play in.
Correct.
And he I guess he does win it, or I can't remember.
What movie's that? Tin Cup.
Tin Cup.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite movies. Yeah.
Isn't that the U.S. Open though?
Yeah, because the best scene in that movie is have you seen Tin Cup, Doug?
I haven't seen it.
So he's a
you need to watch it. It's a great movie.
washed up golf pro, and there's this lady that he's interested in. Well, she happens to be dating his old college teammate who is on the PGA Tour,
and he's the number one player in the world.
And she's not responding to his advances, and he gets real close with her, but she still rejects him. And he says, "I'm going to qualify for the U.S. Open and kick your boyfriend's ass," and he does it.
And he does it.
That's great.
Yeah, it's Kevin Costner is the main character. It was a movie from the, I guess, early 2000s maybe is when it was made, and it's, even if you're not a golfer, it's just a great movie. Like it's well written, and it's got some really good scenes in it. But ladies and gentlemen, speaking of friends, I'm about to intro one of my friends. He is born, raised, and lives in Buffalo, New York. He is married to my other friend and beautiful wife, Liz, and they have 6 beautiful children who are all different ages, and I'm not going to get into all that right now, but I know they're very proud of their dad and what he's accomplished in his life. And as we've talked about on previous podcasts with him, he was a sports photographer and well-known dailies and weeklies before getting into the insurance industry. He and I have had private conversations and public conversations about some of the pictures and places he was able to visit while working for Sports Illustrated, back when Sports Illustrated was the magazine that everybody looked forward to getting every week. He grew up in a scuba diving family, and as part of what we're going to talk about today that I have not spoken to him about, his dad was a pioneer of sorts back in the 60s in scuba diving. I want to talk a little bit about that today. He is the current chairman of the board of the Big Eye of Western New York and serves as director on the board of the Big Eye of New York. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And he's an avid boater. He loves skiing. He loves traveling and going on vacation with friends like Scott and Kim Howell. Surviving a crazy life with 6 kids. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my profound honor today to introduce to you again, I believe this is third time on the IGP? Second or third time. My friend, Mr. Douglas Joseph Benz. How are you, Doug?
I'm well. Good morning, insurance guys. It is an honor, as always, to be back with you. and I'm very pumped to see you across the screen here and be with you this morning.
Well, let me tell our audience what we're going to talk about today. And I know you and Bradley have just returned in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and we wanted to do this while it was kind of fresh on everybody's mind. But you guys have returned from Washington, D.C., in more of a political representation of the insurance industry and independent agents up there, meeting with some lawmakers. We want to get into that today because I think, we get so wrapped up in our everyday existence as independent agents and just billing accounts and claims that have gone sideways and pissed off clients and pissed off employees that we don't really look up and see kind of that broader, bigger picture of what organizations like the Big I and the PIA are doing nationally for us as independent insurance agents. And quite frankly, it's easy for me. I had an hour-long conversation with my wife about this about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I said, Kim, it's hard for me because I'm so in the weeds every day with just running a business to really give much credence to the fact that there are people up in Washington working on our behalf. And can you speak just a little bit to that, Doug?
Yeah, I sure can. As we know, what we do is regulated, right? It's regulated in our respective states.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's regulations at the federal level too that impact our industry. And I think as agents to kind of get together and advocate a little bit, as the term is, it's interesting because, we're not going and asking whether it's in the State House or in Washington, D.C., we're not going and asking anybody for any money. We're not asking anybody that, to do something that really is a direct benefit to us as agents. What we're advocating for is our marketplace, as insurance consumers having access and affordability when they need to purchase insurance. So, in that way, it's pretty darn cool because you're really just trying to make what we do more stable and just better for folks that are encountering insurance, right? Whether it's a personal auto policy or it's more complex business insurances or whatever, it's all regulated, and that has a big impact on what it looks like in the final product.
Absolutely. I've always said, people have heard me say this at different events that I have attended, but you go look at a place where a hurricane goes through or a wildfire or a EF5 tornado, and you go back a year or two, it looks like a third world country when you go to those places immediately after. But then you go back 2 or 3 years, and I do this at home all the time. I'll be watching the news and some huge event will happen, and I'll say, well, insurance will have to pay for that.
Yep.
Because 2 or 3 years afterwards, if you fast forward, your DVD player, and you went back to that place, everything's brand new. Everything looks like it just got built because it did. And guess who paid for all that? Insurance.
Right. It's the side of it that people never really
consider. They don't consider it, and they don't see. And then I guess in a macro of that, and this is something I talk to people about all the time, when that customer who's in the micro calls you to say, and this is the biggest question that we get in our agency all the time, is I don't understand why my premiums went up. I don't live on the Gulf Coast. I don't live in California. People don't understand that insurance is the law of large numbers, and it's a grouping of people, large numbers of people together. And yes, that EF5 tornado that just blew through a city in Oklahoma that caused $400 million worth of damage, that carrier that had a lot of risk in that area, if you're with that carrier and you're in the state of North Carolina, well, that could also impact your rates the next year, right? But people, that just seems to absolutely blow people's minds.
Well,
Like,
and then when you get into reinsurance and stuff like that, you start paying attention to worldwide events.
100%. Then you start talking tsunamis and the whatever this thing is that may happen in Japan or China or the flood in Indonesia, and the next thing you know, you can get off into a 3-hour conversation about that.
Yeah.
No.
Hey, funny story about tsunamis. So Laurel and I bought this Airbnb at the beach. By the way, anybody listening to this wants to stay at my Airbnb, just shoot me a message. I'll send you the link. But I'm joking.
No, he's not.
We're down there our first weekend.
Love it.
And I get a notification on my phone that there has been a tsunami in the Gulf of, no, excuse me, not a tsunami, an earthquake in the Gulf of Mexico. And I'm like, Laurel, that would be about right. We finally buy a house down here and a tsunami hits.
Well, and you're right, because the next thing that happens after an earthquake is a tsunami.
I think this earthquake was small enough that it didn't cause a tsunami. But yeah, it's interesting. You know, I've always been one, Scott, that never really paid attention to the political / government side of insurance and how that ultimately impacts my agency. And this trip with Doug really opened my eyes to a lot of, and I think my attitude was, I can't make an impact.
Right.
And it really opened my eyes.
Which is most people's.
Yeah. And it really opened my eyes to that's not necessarily true. And you need to pay attention to the governmental side of things, you know, especially if you're in a state that's not, you know, New York, California, Texas, a smaller state like I am, where some of the legislators are a little bit more reachable. You know what I mean? But let me tell you something. Doug Benz in Washington, D.C. is like a fish in water, man.
He's like
that guy
he's
knows
like that baby
his way
duck.
around.
Hey, Doug Benz is like that baby duck that you're holding in your hand. You think, you know, I'm going to put this baby duck in this pond and he's just going to drown. And you throw him off in that pond and there he goes swimming in the pond.
It felt like I was going to finishing school. Like he gave me so many little tips like, hey, you do this, you don't say this. Like if they do this, you do like.
That's right.
The dude knows there could not have been a better mentor in Washington, D.C. than Doug Benz for me.
Well, the reason, and I'm about to brag on Doug just a second. The reason my wife and I got into a 1-hour conversation a couple of weeks ago about the Big I and the PIA, and I was explaining what these organizations are, is I was telling her, we were talking about Doug, and I said, Doug Benz, I really respect and appreciate Doug for a couple of reasons. Number one, Doug is fighting the good fight, and he is doing the things that people like Scott Howell don't want to do and just don't have an interest in, which, hey, to each their own, you know. Some people enjoy more of that political arena type thing and navigating those waters and contributing in that way. And some people just want to, like me, it's just not something that interests me. But I was telling her how much I appreciate you, Doug, being one of the guys that goes to Washington and goes to the state associations and is the person who's championing the independent agent cause, because, you know, if they were relying on me to do it, then we'd all have a big problem and probably all be out of business because they'd shut insurance down. But we need people like Doug Benz, and I could mention 1,000 others, the Aubie Knights and Holden Spencer, you know, all these guys. I'm sorry, Spencer Holden.
Yeah,
my bad.
And I think what you have to do too, it's also a slippery slope. You have to be careful that you don't get too in it where it's completely unproductive and you're spending all your time on that side.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Unless that's
true with
where you
anything,
want to be.
though, you know,
it is
anything that's a diversion from producing
for sure
insurance business. You
Absolutely.
Always,
well, and I'll be honest with you, like that
can be tough.
I sort of I still enjoy doing this podcast, but I sort of view it a little bit like a chore because I just want to run my business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you have to remember that these other ancillary things do help you. You know what I mean? But I'll tell you, Scott, sort of leading into it. Sorry, were you
No, go ahead.
You know, my wife and I had our third kid last year, and I basically cut out all travel. And we had a conversation. Both of us have, and I said, I'm not really doing speaking engagements unless it's something really close or something I'm getting paid well, and reserving any business travel for really important stuff, right? And same with her. And I get a text from Doug Benz in February at like 8:00 at night. Hey, Bradley, I'm organizing a visit to the White House with a group of independent agents. Would you like to go? And I showed it to her, and she said, yeah, I think you need to go to that. So I was like, all right, let's roll,
So tell our listening audience a little about what you guys did up there, the purpose of that trip overall. Just give us a flavor for what.
Let me tell you about it a little bit. So
yeah,
I'll start by saying, and I think this is kind of important to mention. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but things are a bit polarized out there these days. And
Really?
when you're talking about insurance issues, they tend to not be too polarizing. So, we're not really going to DC and wading into what you might call the hot buttons.
Shark-infested waters, right? Yeah.
Where people might want to throw Molotov cocktails at you because, they're on the other side of whatever you're talking about. So this is different than that, right? This is all business stuff. This isn't charged political.
It's very apolitical.
Stuff. So bear that in mind. When people think about maybe going and getting involved in political things, I think part of what is a turnoff sometimes is this thought that, hey, we're gonna be in a bare knuckle brawl here, and that's just not for me. So, when you actually get on the ground, I think, and you're not looking at what's happening in our nation's capital legislatively through a lens of reporting that can be designed to get you fired up. It's pretty darn civil, and we're talking about important things that have just a huge impact. On insurance products nationwide for consumers. Flood insurance, you're talking about the Gulf Coast of Alabama and different places, even up where we are. We're not near any kind of tidal water, but we have flood zones here. And if something happens with the National Flood Insurance Program, people can't close their loans. They can't do this. Mm-hmm. And then, there's other things that we get into too. That's typically, that's a perennial issue for us. But to kind of get on the ground and talk to folks, come from around the country, all 50 states, and speak to your local representatives and say, hey, this is who we're advocating for. In my state, in my home, auto insurance is really high right now. Some people can't afford to even get a car and drive to work. And that's not where we want to be. So to have those conversations, to talk about those things with the folks that we elect and send to our nation's capital, is powerful. I think it's important that folks see their hometown constituents and hear what they have to say. And there's no shortage of things to say about the insurance industry.
And you have to remember too that they work for you.
That's right.
You have to remember that. And you can tell, having spoken over the years to different state and federal level legislators and even this trip to DC, you can tell the difference pretty quickly between the ones that look at it that way and the ones that don't.
Absolutely.
But so Doug invited me up there, which I was, very honored. My attitude typically when I travel, I hate traveling somewhere and not having something to do. Like that waiting around,
right,
twiddling your thumbs, waiting on your plane. I hate that. Like we went to Disney World a couple years ago and we had to check out of our hotel at 10 and our flight wasn't till 6. That is like my version of hell. Like I hate just having to lug your luggage around. Like you're just I hate killing time. I used to have this thing that was taped to my computer screen when I was at Alpha because I did a lot of work in the field because we had to go to each of the houses that we insured and that sort of thing. And I had this note taped to my computer that said, never go one place for one thing. You know, if I've got to go to Fairhope to inspect a house, like, okay, who else is over here that I can visit I'm here?
That's a great saying. I love that.
Yeah. And so we didn't know what time we were going to the White House. We also didn't know kind of what we were going to be doing there either. We just knew that we were going, and we didn't know what time we were going. We just knew the day. So I said, okay, to be safe, you know, my style is normally fly in the morning of the thing.
Sure.
And it's because of that not wanting to waste time thing. And so I said, well, I'm going to book the day before just to be safe. And I spoke to a friend of mine who's a local politician here and said, hey, I'm going to DC. I've got some time to kill while I'm up there. Who would you see? Right. Who, and he said, well, I would probably visit Senator Tuberville, senator for Alabama, former football coach. I'm sure none of you guys are shocked that Alabama was probably the first state to elect a football coach as a senator.
Yep.
And the reason why is he's got probably the most pull in DC right now for the state.
Correct.
Because he's big buddies with the president,
Correct.
et cetera, et cetera. And also, I guess I can say this now, Doug. Also, there's a rumor he's going to be running for governor. And, you know, normally a senator won't, it's hard to get a meeting with a senator. And I think Doug even relayed that to me. But the fact that, hey, I'm a business owner in Mobile, I would like to meet with you, and the fact that he's about to embark on this campaign, he would probably be more likely to meet with you.
Sure.
So I shot an email to him thinking there's zero chance. And there's one thing about me, guys, like I'll shoot my shot.
Yeah.
I'm not like you. I'm not opposed to shooting my shot. And so shot an email and they circled back and said, yeah, he'd love to meet with you. And so we got that on the books. And there was a couple of things. I don't want to necessarily go into specifics. There was a couple of things that I wanted to speak with him about. And it was a weird thing because like at that point that we went up there, like I knew for sure he was running for governor just on things I'd heard in the state, but not, you know, and so we get there, and Doug had a few things from a Big Eye national level that we talked about. And I know he was thinking it's weird, Doug. All right, this guy from Alabama and this dude from New York. How in the world?
Yankee down there.
How in the world
I
are
know.
these two guys friends? You know.
Were you in the room with him with Bradley, Doug?
Oh yeah.
I sure was. Yeah.
I wasn't going to go in there without my my DC
Your
mentor.
handler.
but so we get there, and feel free to interject, Doug. This is kind of a cool story. So we get there, and we get to his office, and they had told me, they said, hey, there's a chance, because his schedule's busy. I get it. I'm a peon, right? There's a chance that you won't be meeting with him, that this may get delegated to a staffer.
Right.
Still cool, you know. So we get to the Senate building. By the way, the security at the Senate building, the Russell House, was fairly intense. I was sort of surprised. So I get off the plane and I go
belt off.
Yeah, I get off the plane and I immediately go to the Senate building. And so this is my first. I haven't been to DC since I was 12 years old. It's a really first adult experience. I walk up the floor of the Senate the stairs of the Senate building.
The Russell office building.
Yeah, the Russell office building, and I see them escorting somebody out. And I'm like, okay, this is not a great first impression. So I get in and I'm waiting on Doug to get there, and it's interesting. Like I see like Tim Kaine, who was Hillary's running mate. You know, I see and it's interesting because the Kennedy guy, is it John Kennedy from Louisiana?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. I was telling my wife because like they're essentially famous people, but they're also public servants, so they will talk to you. It's not like seeing someone who's equally famous, like in the entertainment world,
right?
You know, and I'm pretty apolitical. Like I'm a Republican, but I feel like I'm fairly down the middle for a dude that grew up in Alabama, you know. And I'm not one of these guys that thinks, oh, I'm not going to associate with someone who thinks differently politically from me, because that's really how you end up getting like thinking the other side is evil when they're really not, right? And I think you find a lot of times when you speak with people that vary differently politically from you, you really have the same goals. You just have different philosophies of how to accomplish that goal, you know? So it was interesting to see a couple of those people. So Doug gets there and we walk into the senator's office and he's not there. And so I don't know about you, Doug, but I was thinking, oh, okay, we're getting.
Well, you know, you never know what's going on. So,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of times when you're there, you know, these people come flying out from behind closed doors.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? You're kind of like standing around, a lot of hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like all of a sudden, you know, the door opens and somebody walks in and you get a few minutes of their time. So I will jump in for a minute and just a couple qualifiers. You know, usually we're mostly meeting with folks on the House side. I feel like when
Right.
we go down there, I'm from New York, so in particular, you know, we're meeting with, you know, there's 435 representatives and there's 100 senators, right? So you go over on the House side and, you know, it's different. It's like if you're looking at the front of the Capitol, you know, the House is all the way to the right and then across the street are the House office buildings, and all the way to the left and across the street are the Senate office buildings. And they're, as the crow flies, right, probably over a mile away from each other. They're not that close. They're the extreme opposites. So I've always kind of lived on the House side on most of these jaunts. I'd never been to the Senate side before. So that was,
And it's crazy
so
how
that was cool in itself. But
Yeah.
what we did next, what ended up happening next. So again, typically you're going to meet with a representative in their office. I've met with them in committee rooms sometimes. So maybe someone's on the House Ways and Means Committee and they say, hey, go meet me over at Ways and Means or something. And they might have a little conference room over there or something. But what happened to us next was not the norm. And I'll flip it back to you to kind of tell you where we wound around to.
Yeah, what did she say exactly? She said something
She
to the
said
effect,
Senator Tuberville would like to meet you off the floor.
which I didn't
And,
know what meant. I didn't know what that meant. And I was like, oh, okay. And Doug's like, this is really freaking cool. And I was like, what does this mean?
So off the floor of the United States Senate, if you turn on C-SPAN 2 or whatever it is, and you look at the chamber, you know, there's nooks and crannies, right? When you go through the doors and you leave the
Doug
chambers,
whispered in my ear and said, are you an oligarch?
Probably did he really?
No.
Probably little tiny conference rooms, almost looks like a confessional
No.
kind of thing, Doug. I mean, around the...
It looked like the Palace of Versailles.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It was
okay.
like...
Well, it was cool because we got to
it
walk.
was gold leaf and this fireplace, and I mean, it was as ornate as something.
We got to walk from the Russell Building to the Capitol in the underground tunnels.
Oh, wow. With Tuberville?
No, with his staff.
Okay.
And then we walk in this room, and it's like gold leaf, just gold everywhere.
Yeah.
And we walked in, and one of the first...
This is underground?
No, this is, we're in the Capitol at this point.
Okay.
And so one of the first things he said to us when we walked in is he said, this looks like something Trump would build, doesn't it? With all the gold.
Yeah.
And so that sort of broke the ice, and we had a great discussion about insurance. You know, some of
Everybody calls him Coach.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
staff, people are coming up to him. Everybody calls him Coach.
And so, and I didn't. It was interesting. I'd never brought up. I'm a huge Auburn fan. He coached at Auburn. He was the coach when I was growing up and getting into football, and so I never brought that up because I didn't want. I'm sure he gets people that are just massive football fans that want to meet with him because he was the football coach.
Right.
And so I never brought that up. And so towards the very end, I said, oh, by the way, War Eagle. And it was almost like he had this like, oh, you're with me kind of.
Right. Yeah.
It was just like, okay. But we had a great meeting. You know, the point that it really seemed like he really was genuinely paying attention and understood. He said it makes total sense. And then the cool thing is he left there he left there to go speak on the Senate floor,
which we could see from where we were sitting.
Yeah.
Like when the door opened, it was like I mean,
It was there.
you could have
kinda like
flipped a
being
coin
behind
and
the
had it
stage.
land on the Senate floor.
Yeah, it's like being behind this or at the edge of the stage when somebody like a rock star walks
Right.
out to go
Yeah, right.
start singing at a concert.
And and then he left speaking there to go get on Air Force One.
Yeah, to come to Alabama for the
commencement
address. Yeah,
But it was cool because we followed that up with a Capitol tour, and we did a really in-depth, like behind the scenes Capitol tour, and we got to go into the Senate floor room, whatever that's called, and he happened to be speaking.
The gallery, I guess.
Yeah,
they
so
call
this
it.
guy, the gallery. Yeah, when she said, "You guys want to go in the gallery," I thought that was like an art museum. I didn't know what that,
I was like, yeah,
it's,
we'll take a couple gallery
I was
passes.
like, why are we having to give our phones? I don't understand. I can't take pictures of these paintings. And so we walked in, it was like, oh crap. And so he was actually, so we got to meet with him and then immediately see him speak on the Senate floor, which was really cool. And then, the
whole thing was pretty money. I mean, it just couldn't have, it really, I mean, timing is also a big part of these things. If that had been set up for an hour later behind, we might have been with a staffer, but holy smokes.
So what insurance related for these agents listening to the podcast who may not understand what you guys talked about, and I'm sure it wasn't longer than like a 5 or 10 minute conversation, but
it was probably 15. I would say.
What insurance topics did you bring up? You called me and said, "Hey, I'm going to meet with Tuberville. What do you want me to bring up?" And I said, "Well, I've got one major issue that's got to be changed, not only in the state of Alabama but across the country." And that is, we have got to get with our legislators in each state because insurance is regulated by the states.
Yeah,
and increase this minimum auto liability limit to $5,150, just at a minimum. Because right now, I think
North Carolina just did that.
Yeah, I knew that. I knew North Carolina did it, but I think they're one of like 2 states that have increased those minimum liability limits. There's not many. But this 25, 50, 25, I mean, my God, I talked to a buddy of mine who's with Toyota the other day, and because of this topic, and I said, Tim, let me ask you a question. What's your average new Toyota cost off the lot today? Just average, no matter what you buy. He said $45,000 to $48,000. And just about every state in the United States minimum limit is $25,000. So we're not.
I did some research.
10,000 in the Empire State, boys.
Yeah. I did
25,
some research
50,
on
10
that.
up here.
See, that's not going to work. That's got to get changed.
I did some research on that when you brought that up to me. So the average car in Alabama, not new car, of all the cars on the road, the average value is $36,000.
So say we're behind.
Yeah. So my thing. So Doug had.
What did we talk about down there? Was that what you were asking, Scott?
Yeah. I was asking what exactly from an insurance perspective, beyond the meet and greet and how you doing and where you headed. What exactly did you guys talk about as far as insurance goes?
So I'll give some So Doug had 3 or 4 things that the big eye gave you guys, like these. If you meet
flashcards, talking points,
and those were things like crop insurance, that sort of stuff that happened. My thing that I wanted to talk to him about was not a federal thing at all. It was a state thing, but I also knew this governor thing was looming.
Which, by the way, he's announced publicly, right?
Yeah,
he is running for governor. Yeah,
I'm making a donation this week, actually.
Okay.
The big thing is for me was so Mississippi passed a law or regulation that an insurance carrier could not cancel or non-renew or refuse to renew you because of the age of your roof. And I'm not going to go into it here because everybody listening to this are insurance agents. And so the negative ramifications on the consumer when you restrict an insurance company from being able to spread the risk. The main person that negatively impacts are the consumers.
Right.
And even though Mississippi is not Alabama, that hits a little bit close to home. And so I wanted to essentially put that bug in his ear, like, hey, if this ever comes up, we don't need to do this in Alabama. If your roof needs to be replaced, you need to replace your roof.
Right.
Bottom line. you know.
Sometimes
So,
that's just the way it goes. It kind of blows my mind, even where we are, this sort of idea that like when you need a roof, it's like you call your insurance
yeah,
company.
exactly.
So,
Exactly.
It's
so
really strange.
but
But
we
I thought that was great to kind of, and he appreciated that too.
he did.
And it was
Yeah.
interesting because it was not a federal issue. And I don't know, that whole thing, there was a little magic in that whole meeting, I thought. Just again, the timing, the way it came together, what he hadn't announced but was interested in the state level issues facing the industry, which is mostly, Scott, where we are. We're mostly kind of going to the state houses, but from
sure.
the top down in DC too, we got a big thing going now that New York has some strict liability laws that preempt workers' comp, kind of, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some movement on some federal regulation that might have some positive impact for New York insurance consumers in that way. So there's a lot going on, and the team on the ground there, um, in the Big I office in Washington D.C. is pretty formidable. Um, Charles Symington and Nathan Rydell and Malia Boot, they're like a great crew,
Yeah.
and they got their finger on the pulse of what's happening. Like everything, it's relationships, and I
Yeah.
feel like our team there really does. They know the players, they know the people that have been around, and they're really great at just getting the message out and getting things done for our
Man,
industry.
we got to get Charles on this podcast. I've reached out multiple times. I need your help getting him on
I'll
here.
twist Charles's arm a little bit. I was with him on Long Island a couple weeks ago, which was a little homecoming for him, which is
Yeah.
where he's from. He's a great guy, but they're doing great work, and I'll nod to New York for just a minute. I might say that we have a more hostile legislative climate here to our industry than perhaps
Yeah.
any other state in the union, and I don't think that's an exaggeration. Back in 2019, one of the houses in our legislature flipped, and it gave us one party rule in New York. So there's a lot of hostility towards our industry, generally speaking. There's some sad misconceptions. When you mention insurance, sometimes you're sort of painted with this brush that you're waking up dreaming about denying Granny's cancer medication today or something like that. And as we know, it's not how it works really, especially on the P&C side. People need auto insurance to go to work. It's like that's what we're talking about.
Right.
Our team here has built out this legislative sort of framework, if you will. We have a full-time legislative director in Albany, Travis Waddy, and Lisa Lounsbury, who's our state executive. It's just, we have a thing, and it's working really great. And to kind of then sort of bounce to DC and see that too is pretty awesome. It's like a well-oiled machine in terms of when we're trying to get our message out. We know where to go and how to do it.
Well, and it's interesting too. That attitude towards insurance, and I know we get lumped in with health insurance, and most of the time when you see some random person online talking crap about insurance, it's usually health insurance. And should I give you another reason as to why we don't need the government getting involved in property and casualty? But it's interesting this insurance is a scam mantra that you see more and more online. I'm in a Facebook group that's a pretty well-known Facebook group, not in the insurance world. And this guy posted that he owned a Lamborghini and he was renting it out to a friend, or excuse me, renting it out to a random person. I don't think it was through Turo, but something like that where you can rent exotic cars. And the person that was driving the car was T-boned by someone else. The person who hit the Lamborghini did not carry insurance. The person who owned the Lamborghini had insurance but had not notified his insurance company that he was renting the car out. Therefore, he wanted to know if he was screwed or not. And, oh, by the way, insurance is a scam. And I'm like, No, bro, like you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like
You're running
you
a
did
car rental
not,
business.
you did not handle business. Like be an adult, you know? And that's the problem is for every 10 insurance is a scam, this is what they did to me. 9.5 of those are people that did not handle their business the right way. And that may seem harsh, but I'm not really empathetic to that at all. And yeah, insurance companies do stupid stuff, or you get an adjuster that is not really well versed in the policy language, and you get in a situation where you have to fight for you. I get that those situations happen, right? It's like there's an attorney on TikTok. It's a real popular injury attorney on TikTok that loves crapping on State Farm. Like he goes at State Farm, right? Hates State Farm. He gets pulled over. The cops think he's drinking and driving, and so he hadn't been drinking, so he videos it to show people how to handle a DUI checkpoint, and he pulls his insurance card out, and it's a freaking State Farm insurance card. And I'm like, no, like you just don't like that they make your job hard because they don't like attorneys taking advantage of them. You know what I mean? And it's just like there's a lot of that. It's propaganda. And it's like the fact of the matter is a hurricane rolls through and blows the town away. It's the insurance company that builds it back.
We
Like
had a
you said.
tornado here last night in the southern tier. Noah, who drives into work here from like 50 miles away down in ski country, texted me, and he's like, I cannot believe, he's like 3 minutes from my house, my neighbor's barn is just leveled. And then he was showing me before I jumped on this morning a picture of his other neighbor who's like the roof is ripped off their house. And you know what? I would hazard a guess that those people are going to meet an adjuster in the next day or two in this most awful hour of their life where they don't know what the heck is going to happen or where they're going to turn or where they're going to sleep. And somebody's going to show up from a company we do business with or a big national carrier or whoever it is. And they're going to have a checkbook in their hand.
And I think a lot of times, Doug, people that have bad at claims experience, not throwing this off on my counterparts, but a lot of times it's because they don't have the right agent.
I agree with that too. You know, I do agree with that. I saw something, a friend of mine who's not my client, but just again an interesting story recently where his agent just it was so egregious that I was like, you know, did you make any noise about this? And he said no. You know, and he ended up having to handle a claim out of pocket.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, you know, and he was kind of grousing about it a little bit, but I was like, man, you know, this agent really dropped the ball here, and you make us all look like jerks, you know, because this guy's like, I've been paying my home premiums for, you know, 25 years. I've never had a claim. Something finally happens. Of course, it's not covered. So, you know, but it's the agent's fault. It's not the insurance carrier's fault or anybody on that team. You know, it's the agent fault.
Well, we had a claim recently where somebody had water damage in their house, and the carrier was not handling it properly. And the customer called me, and I called the highest person in terms of the corporate pecking order I knew at that carrier, and we were able to get it done. And that's not me bragging about myself, but like that's what I think a good agent does. Hey, this adjuster is not doing their job. Let's go above their head, you know. And
that happens sometimes. They move slowly, or I don't know what it is, but we've all beaten our head against the wall with an adjuster that won't call us back, and you got to kind of just light a fire. And,
yeah, we had me and that adjuster went round and round. I got one up on her. So the initial call, there was something I had a question about, and she very passively aggressively said, "Well, as an agent, you should know blah blah blah." And so I didn't lose my cool, even though it really blew my top. And about a week later, the customer had not my thing is like I tell our employees here at Portal, calling and saying, "Hey, I have no news," is better than not calling, right? And so I'm on the phone with the adjuster. The customer hasn't heard from the person, you know, and so I called the adjuster, like, hey, she hadn't got a call in a couple of days. Yeah, we just don't have any update. And I'm like, well, as an adjuster, you should know that these things, if you just call and touch base, I was like, yeah, I got you, you know. But you want to close this out, Scott? Well, Doug, I'll say real quick, like it was one of the highest honors of my life that you invited me to go with you to this, and I had a great time with you while we were up there. We did some more stuff too that we don't have time to get into today. That was really cool.
It was an extraordinarily cool trip. I got to tip my hat to the Colonel there.
Yeah,
your cousin. He is an amazing guy, and I hope we get a chance to do it again. But it is neat to be on the ground and see how it works there just for a few days, and kind of get your taste and go back home.
Yeah.
But democracy in action, right? I mean, we're talking about things that do have a big impact on our business and industry. And
probably the funniest thing that happened, I don't even know if you saw this, Doug. We were going through Secret Service at the White House, and Carrie Cheeks is touching up her makeup in a mirror, and Lisa Lounsbury goes, Carrie, that's a two-way mirror. They're Secret Service agents looking at you on the other side.
It's funny. Doug, hey, Doug, I'm going to shut us down. Keep fighting a good fight, brother. We need people like you and
thank you, my man.
Thank you.
Did I hear at the beginning that am I going to see you in Key West, Scott?
No, I'm not going to be able to come down there.
Okay. I thought I didn't know if I heard that or not.
No, so. I'm short-staffed right now at the office and still fighting a good fight. So, got a lot going on, but I wish I could be down there. I'd love to.
I hope it's soon. Liz needs a Kim fix after that trip we had last year.
That's it.
And then in December with Laurel, she got a flu bug or something. So I don't know. We got to get something planned, boys. Get back out on the trail.
Well, we love you guys and appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing. And like I said, keep fighting the good fight. And as I end every episode, rewards come from action, not discussion. Get your ass out from behind that desk today. Go out into the big bad world. Become the mayor of your village. I heard Alex Hermosa say yesterday, if you are in a business that is making less than $3 million a year in revenue, you should be spending 4 hours a day on marketing and becoming known in your community. And in our case, that is to become the insurance girl or guy in your community. When you walk into a restaurant, when you walk into church, when you walk into your kid's ball game, you want people to say, hey, there's the insurance guy or girl. Go do that, and you'll make more money and make money for your wife, for your husband, for your kids' college fund, for your parents and your in-laws like mine that are struggling out there today. Go make money for them. Write good business for the agencies that you represent, and write good business for the carriers that you represent. Bradley Flowers, I love you.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, gentlemen. That was great.
Guys, you are listening to the Insurance Guys podcast, and we love each one of you. Thank you so much for being a part of our family, and we'll see you back here real soon. Take care.